Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Broken Brand. And today we're going to be looking at the TikTok ban in the United States. Now, let's just kind of break down what's going on. A bill was passed today in the House that could lead to the ban of the TikTok app within the United States. Now, the reason for this is that the parent company of TikTok is really integrally tied to the Chinese government. And this is what a lot of lawmakers and politicians have declared a national security concern. My concern is the outright banning of anything will eventually lead to banning of something that we never foresaw or that we don't want. So I do have concern with that. But this is just the House. It has to pass the Senate and it has to be signed into law by the president. So it's not a done deal yet. And there's a lot of unforeseen hurdles that are going to be along this path. I personally am against it. Uh, Taking a different approach to address this concern, yes. I'm just not. I'm not for outright banning anything, particularly when it comes to social media, anything in general, anything that should be free to the public. I'm very against, because this is something that does not innately lead to the harm of an individual or group of people. So I'm against it. I'm against its banning. But here's the problem with this that some people are starting to realize. Okay, if this does get banned, what does this mean? This means that Apple and Google and any other future app companies that sell or allow the purchase or download of the TikTok app will be prevented by law to do so within the United States borders. Now, this is enforceable, but the law proposed gives a path to this not happening, and that is the parent company would sell off TikTok to another company that is not so tied into the Chinese government. Now, this could be something that a lot of people look at and be like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And it does make sense. But the problem is who can afford to buy it? That's the problem. Who could afford to buy TikTok? Well, major companies that can afford to buy TikTok are Apple, Google, Twitter, Meta, and a lot of these other social media companies could afford to purchase it, or companies that own social media platforms could purchase this, which sounds like, well, what's the big deal? Facebook purchased Instagram and things like that, and Google doesn't really have a major platform besides YouTube now. They got rid of Google Plus years ago, and here's the problem: is it becomes an antitrust issue. One company has too much control of social media platforms. It doesn't matter which one picks it. They could have more control over the social media and could control dissemination of information, as we saw back during the COOF, that there was a lot of social engineering, a lot of blocked posts and topics that were not allowed to be discussed, whether factual or not, should have been allowed to be discussed. Whether they just turned out to be just wild conspiracy theories, fine. YouTube, social media all across the globe are full of conspiracy theories. It's fine. It's the freedom of speech. So that's why this is a bigger issue than just banning TikTok. Because the path to TikTok staying within the United States borders would allow a multimedia company or a large social media company more control over a certain media, which we call social media, than any other one. And so with this, we're going to have a problem. And I don't think this is a good solution. I don't have a better solution, but I just foresee major problems. The the path to keeping it in the United States is the right path to do, but the end result would be devastating for social media control of large companies. One company would have a huge advantage of the control of the social media sphere of influence, and that's not a good thing, period. I know we've got a lot of new social media platforms that are popping up and getting traction, like Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, and so many others that I can't even think about now, that are popping up, but they're not as popular and they're not as prominent as something as TikTok, which is probably, I don't know, I want to say in the top three probably used today. It is heavily used by younger audiences. Me personally, I don't use it. I just don't have time to sit and just watch video after video after video. I just don't. That's just not me. I'd rather read, catch a little video summary of something, of an article or something, kind of like what I'm doing now, just summarizing what's going on versus 30-second, 60-second videos of just nonsense, craziness, and sometimes very informative stuff. I mean, it's the gambit of everything. And I personally think that this path will lead to a problem for us as a society for one company to have that much control. Now, is there a better solution? Will this solution pass the House? And that's the question. The president has already said he would sign the bill if it got to his desk, and the House seems to be stacked with a lot of people on both sides that are unwilling to state their position. Even Chuck Schumer is just like, I'm not saying which side I'm on. And personally, I think this probably would not be happening in a non-election year. This seems to be one of those things that, yeah, let's push this, let's make this a political issue when this really is a societal issue, and we should look at it as a whole in a much bigger scheme, like I've been talking about, and what those consequences of something like this are. I personally think that if this gets passed, we're going to see a major company try to purchase TikTok from this Chinese company, and whoever it is going to have an unfair advantage of influence in the social media realm. And I think that's a bad thing. I'm going to continue to say that's a bad thing. I don't think TikTok is detrimental as a lot of people have said, although there are many, 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 many Twitter accounts that are dedicated to showing the insanity that dwells within the TikTok universe, and that does give me pause, the craziness. But then I'm like, well, I can probably find that if I looked in any other social media platform, to be honest with you. So I'm all for free speech. I'm all for the Chinese government not having influence over social media, just like I'm in favor of our own United States government having influence over our social media. This is not a topic that can be decided quickly, and I think this is going to be pushed through, and we're going to have a lot of people up in arms on both sides. I think if this is pushed through, the Democrats are going to probably side with the banning. It's going to particularly, even though this is being pushed by conservatives for the majority, a lot of Democrats have crossed the party lines to back this bill, and we may see the same thing in the House. And this would be a bad decision for Democrats. I think it's a good decision for everyone if this bill fails and we come up with a different solution. I think the way the path is going to cause major problems and major repercussions for years to come. And I do think this will cost the Democrats the election. I'm I don't want to say which way I would go, but I would say this, that the Democrats are highly seeking the younger generations to pull them up and use TikTok a lot. And doing this would literally put them at odds that, like, you didn't protect us, fine. We'll just, if you can't protect us, we'll try this other side, see if they can get us back on TikTok. And this is going to be a political issue for this year. And I don't like that. I would rather have free speech everywhere. And this is just going to be one of those topics that's going to seem simple, but by the end of it, it's just going to be a tangled web of just chaos and insanity. And it's going to bring out the worst in some of these politicians. We're going to get to see the worst sides of them because they're just going to go full tilt for it and against it. So that's my summary of what's going on with the TikTok ban. My my position is I hope it stops, and I hope it stops today. I hope the House just realizes that this is a bad decision, but with a majority in the majority in the Senate. I apologize, I got them switched in my head. The Senate has to approve this. The House has already approved it, so I'm hoping the Senate just squashes this and we're done with it. But this topic has been talked about for years. I think this was talked about in the 2020 election. So this is something that's been being kicked around in the political atmosphere for years now, and I don't see this going away anytime soon. So until we get some more information, until we hear the voting results of the House and how this is going to go, just keep praying that freedom of speech and freedom to access that speech remains intact for all peoples across the world. So until next time, my friends, I love you all, and there's nothing you can do about it.